Bueno, muy buenos días a todas las personas que se van conectando a esta sesión informativa. Vamos a esperar unos minutos para que se conecten más participantes, así que vamos a tomar un minutico de espera y mientras tanto voy a contarles a las personas que se van conectando que mi nombre es Lady Velázquez, hago parte del equipo de Consejería Académica de Colfuturo y el día de hoy, como ustedes ya lo saben, vamos a estar hablando sobre la Universidad de Lund en Suecia, así que la idea es que ustedes van a poder tener información de primera mano sobre la oferta académica, cómo es el proceso de admisión, requisitos y pues también conocer cuál es el convenio que se tiene con Colfuturo. Así que para recibir esta información nos acompaña María, ella es representante de esta universidad y nos va a compartir toda esta información de utilidad. Los invito a que si tienen preguntas, dudas, algo que quisieran comentarle directamente a ella, lo pueden hacer desde la cajita de Q&A y al final de la sesión vamos a responder cada una de esas inquietudes. Y antes de empezar, quiero comentarles que, como decía, hay un convenio con Colfuturo que otorga en este caso un 25% de descuento en el valor de la matrícula para 10 beneficiarios. En este caso, si ustedes quieren llegar a ganarse este beneficio, deben postularse al programa Crédito Beca con la oferta académica de la Universidad de Lund. Si son seleccionados por Colfuturo, nosotros enviaremos su nombre a la universidad y ellos se encargarán directamente de tomar la decisión de otorgarles este descuento del 25% en el valor de su matrícula. Si quieren también postularse, tengan en cuenta que las fechas de la convocatoria de Colfuturo abren el 9 de enero del 2024 y cierran el 29 de febrero del 2024. Así que tienen ese lapso de tiempo para postularse a nuestra financiación, postularse con los programas de la Universidad de Lund y poder recibir este beneficio del 25% de descuento. Así que sin más introducción, vamos ya a abrir la presentación con María. Así que thank you so much, Maria, for being here. You can go ahead and start the presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you to those of you who are attending. So I will be sharing my presentation with you. My name is Maria, and I am the recruitment manager for Lund University in Latin America. So I travel often to Colombia, and I also stay in contact with all the students once they have applied to Lund University. So if you do end up applying, you will be in touch with me for sure. So I hope you can all see my screen now, and I'm going to go through some of the information that you need. We'll be talking a little bit about the region, about the university, how to apply, what kind of study opportunities there are, and I will also go through a timeline so that you see the key dates of when to apply and when you will have the results and so on. So I'll jump right ahead and start with the region and the location so that you know where Lund University is. So we are located in the south of Sweden. You can see the ringed circled area here on the map. So at the lower part of Scandinavia, and we are right in between Sweden and Denmark. So this is a part of the greater Copenhagen area. So even though we are in Sweden, we are connected to the greater Copenhagen area, which is the capital of Denmark, of course. And this whole region has around 4 million inhabitants, over 10,500 researchers, 140,000 students. There are science parks, there are universities. So it's a very dynamic and very innovative and growing region in this area. So even though Lund itself and the university is in one small town, you will see that it's connected to so much more. And we actually have 3 campuses at the university. The main campus is at Lund, the city of Lund, but we also have campuses in Malmö and Helsingborg, which are all in the same region here that you can see on the map. And I think it's important to give it that context because many students are thinking, oh, but if I study in Sweden, I should go to Stockholm. But actually, we are in a bigger region, even though Lund itself is a smaller town. So that's just an important distinction and to understand the context of the university. A little bit about the university itself. So we are one of the oldest and largest universities in Northern Europe and in Scandinavia. We were founded in 1666. We have around 46,000 students from all over the world. We're going to talk a bit more about that soon. Around 8,500 staff members, and we are a comprehensive university. So we have 9 faculties across all subject areas, and we'll get to that in a moment as well. And around 275 different study programs at bachelor and master's level. And then, of course, we also have PhD studies. I saw that there was a question about that already, and we will talk a bit more about that as well. Lund is consistently ranked in the top 100 of the world. So we're currently number 85 in the QS ranking. And we are also the most popular choice for international students who are coming to study in Sweden. So out of all the applicants coming to Sweden, around 1/3 of them apply to Lund University. So we do get most of the international applicants to Lund. As I already mentioned, it's very international. So around 46% of our PhD students are international and around 60% of the master students. In the lower levels, the bachelor students, they are more Swedish because the programs are taught in Swedish. But at master's level, where the programs are taught in English, and PhD, where the education is also in English, we see a big percentage of international students really coming from all over the world. We have around 130 different nationalities on campus. So we really have a very global spread. It's not just a high number of international students, but also students representing a lot of countries around the world. When it comes to what we offer academically, we have one of the widest ranges in Scandinavia when it comes to the kind of programs and study areas that we have. We have, as I mentioned, 9 faculties, and I will be mentioning these in a moment. So we really represent all subjects from engineering to law to business to science. So we have a wide range of research and program offerings. The university as such has a very, very strong focus on research. So even though we have 46,000 students, as I mentioned, about 2/3 of our budget actually goes into our research. So that is sort of the heavy side of the university is the research. And the students who are studying here are also very much involved in the research, even when they're doing their bachelor's or their master's, because there's always a part of a thesis that is included in the education. And they might do their own projects or collaborate with a research group, for example. So that is a very important part of the academics. And we do have one of the broadest research environments in Scandinavia, and we have world-class research facilities, some of which are used by several European countries or several countries around the world, such as the ESS and the MAX4, which are 2 very, very large research infrastructures that are here in Lund. But to see a little bit more the specific areas where we do research, I want to just highlight that we do research at all of our departments, all of our faculties. They all have PhD students. They all have research projects. But I have highlighted some here in the presentation where we have specifically defined our research excellence areas that we are putting additional funding into, and where we have received external funding as well to work on these areas and develop them further. So one of these research excellence areas is better health. And this is not just at the Faculty of Medicine, but it is actually something that goes across several of our faculties and our departments. And it is the benefit of being a comprehensive university because you can collaborate a lot in an interdisciplinary way and across borders. So this is some areas within better health. We also have a focus on future technology. And here as well, of course, it connects through several areas, not just the Faculty of Science, but also the Faculty of Engineering and also the business side. So Again, an overlap between several of our faculties. We also have a research excellence area that we're calling Open Societies, where we are doing research on things like human rights and special area studies, like Middle Eastern studies, for example. And another important area is sustainability. And if you want to study something related to sustainability, Sweden is really the country where you want to do this, given that we are in the forefront in the world when it comes to sustainability and thinking about our environment. And this is a part of the everyday life in Sweden. So just as a citizen, we pay a lot of attention to what is environmentally friendly, separating all the garbage, people buying new electrical cars and so on. So we try to bike as much as possible and not drive when we have that option. We use our public transportation a lot. So there's a lot of focus on sustainability, even as a private individual. But in our research specifically, we're working on a lot of new materials, biofuel solution, biodiversity, sustainable production. As you can see, these are some examples of how we work with sustainability as well. So that was just a little bit of an update about the different research areas that we are focusing on at the moment. But again, we do have ongoing research at all the faculties and departments. Moving on to the master's level to see what we offer there. We have around 130 different international master's programs. And many of these programs are completely unique because we have a range of sort of quite classical programs that you'll find at many different universities. And then we have also quite a wide range of interdisciplinary programs that only exist in Lund because they have been created from this unique structure that we have, having all these subject areas represented, all the faculties represented in a very small town. That means that a lot of people naturally work together, collaborate, and interdisciplinary projects are started. And then when researchers have been collaborating for some time in a specific topic, they might say, okay, well, let's start a master's program in this field. And then they create a master's program that doesn't exist anywhere else because it comes from our research rather than from sort of the outside asking for it. So in that way, many of the programs are unique and also can accept students from different backgrounds because they have this unique interdisciplinary feature. So there's a mix of the traditional programs and some unique programs, but the full range is around 130 international programs in all subjects. So to give you a little bit of an overview of the structure of the masters, again, they are across all of our faculties, and these are the areas that we have. So we have business and management, we have engineering, natural science, environment and sustainability, social sciences, medicine, humanities, art and music, design and architecture, law, and a few other additional ones as well. So it really is a wide representation there of the subjects. Most of the master's programs are 2 years, which is 120 ECTS credits. We do have some masters, especially in management, that are 1-year masters. The master's programs in Sweden are course-based, so they are built up where you study one course at a time, sometimes 2 courses at a time, but not more than that. So the structure is different than in many other countries where you have maybe 10 different subjects you're studying at the same time, and then you do like a final exam. We don't do that. We do one course, and then you have an exam, and then you do another course, and then you have an exam. So we do one subject at a time. And at the end of the programs, there is always a thesis or a research degree project that you end the program with. And in this thesis, you can also collaborate with companies or with research groups at the university. So if you want to continue on and do a PhD, there's also the possibility to use the master's as a way to get into the PhD programs. As I already mentioned, many programs are unique and interdisciplinary. Many of the programs also have an opportunity to choose elective courses or to do an internship or to study abroad again, although you're already abroad. And we also have guest lectures coming in from the industry, and we also have those research connections that I spoke about if you want to continue to a PhD or, of course, get a job outside of the university as well. We prepare you regardless of what option you are going for there. I saw that we already had in the Q&A here a question about PhD, and the best way into a PhD is to go through the master's. So even if you have a master's, I would recommend considering a master's to get involved in the research as a master's student and then apply for a PhD position. You can also use some of the research from the master's into the PhD. It is possible to apply directly to a PhD, but these are announced job positions in Sweden. So it's a little bit different, and it's quite competitive to get into a PhD directly. So usually the best way to go is through a master's. If you want to see all of our programs, there is a link here at the bottom where you can go on our website and find the full range of all the 130 master's programs. At this moment, it's still the previous round that is announced because we haven't opened yet for this year. I will get to the timeline in a moment and you can see when it's going to open. A little bit about how to apply. So you have to apply through a national system when you apply to Sweden. So even though you know that you want to apply to Lund, you need to go through the national portal. And this is called universityadmissions.se. So this is a portal for all of Sweden. And you can go there and search for the program and find the program at Lund University, and then you make your application there online. It's open between mid-October and mid-January. So at the end of September, early October, that's when all the programs will be updated for the next application round. A little bit also about the costs. I know that is a common question, of course, excuse me, to understand what it costs. The tuition fees vary between the different programs, so it depends on the program that you choose. So you will find on the website, when you read about the program, you will also find the tuition fees. So depending on the program you choose, it can be anything from around $12,000 up to $24,000 per year. I put it in US dollars here because I think that's perhaps the currency that you're most familiar with in terms of the exchange rate. But most programs are somewhere in the range $14,000 to $19,000. If you have US dollars already, good, you're in luck because the currency rate is now very favorable for those who are coming that way. The Swedish currency is a bit weaker at this moment, so the programs have become slightly cheaper. When it comes to, excuse me, the living costs, we recommend having around $1,000 per month, and that covers all the costs that you might have, like accommodation and food and books and other things that you need as you're here as a student. Of course, these are not exact numbers, but this is roughly the numbers. And again, on the website, you can find the exact tuition fee in the Swedish currency, and then you can convert to your own currency to see exactly how much it's going to be. And the prices will change for next year, so don't check now, check after October when we've opened, and you will see the exact. In terms of help with that cost, we have, of course, as was already mentioned here, the collaboration with Kolfoturo. So if you are selected by them, you will have a chance to get the discount of 25%. I also do want to mention that we have our own scholarship program, the Lund University Global Scholarship. So that is certainly something you are also welcome to apply for. that opens up after the application for studies. So first you apply to the program, and then when that application is closed, we open the scholarship application. And if you are selected for the Lund University Global Scholarship, it can cover up to, well, from 25% usually is the smaller ones, and then up to 90% of the tuition fees, sometimes even 100, but usually up to maximum 90. This is a merit-based scholarship and very selective, so obviously not all students will be selected, but you can certainly apply for that as well. And there are also national Swedish scholarships that you can apply for. So you do have some different options there to help you, along with also the discount and Kolfaturo, of course. This was already presented, but just to recap, we do have that agreement. So if you are selected for Kolfaturo, you will receive a 25% discount or scholarship from Lund University. And this is deducted then from the tuition fees. It also includes insurance, so you would be covered for that, and you would also have a housing guarantee. So when you come from Colombia to study at Lund, and you are a fee-paying student or a student with the Kolfaturo agreement or with a scholarship from us or from Sweden, you do also have that guarantee. So want to a quick check of the timeline here as well, just to see where we're at and what you can start thinking about already at this point. So basically what you can do now is start exploring the programs that we have. As I mentioned, it is last year's list, but it will more or less be the same this year. So you can explore the programs, check the entry requirements. Each program has their own entry requirements. If you're applying to a master's, you will of course need to have a bachelor's degree. But other than that, there might also be subject-specific requirements, specific courses that you must have studied, and this varies from program to program. So it is important to check that and start planning that. Another thing that is good to do already now is to plan for the funding. For example, which scholarships you want to apply for, excuse me, what kind of funding you want to look into, if you have enough savings, etc. Just so you know, if you do get admission, how you will fund your studies. We also recommend checking that you have an English test that is up to date and that is still valid. Many students discover pretty late that they need to retake it or that the score wasn't enough, and then they get very stressed at the last minute. And you will need to have a valid and approved test by the document deadline. So please check that now. For most programs, they require a level of English 6, and that means for TOEFL, that is 90 as an overall score, and for IELTS, that is 6.5. And then there are also specific requirements for the different sections. So do take a look at that. You will find those details on universityadmissions.se as well. As I mentioned earlier, we open in mid-October and close in mid-January. So that's the time to make the actual application online. And then we have another deadline, which is the 1st of February, and that's the deadline for all documents, including your English test. So your bachelor transcript, if you have finished also your diploma, your English test, and any other documents that the program requires. And you also need to pay an application fee by that date. The different scholarships and funding options, of course, have their own deadlines. When it comes to the Lund University Global Scholarship, that opens in February. The same goes for the National Swedish Scholarship. Obviously, Kolfaturo has their scholarship, their funding deadlines that you need to consider. So it's important to look into that as well, so you don't miss anything there. The admission results are usually out in early April. The date is also slightly different every year, so I actually don't know the exact date yet, but it will be around early April. And then after that, you go ahead with your other preparations, like applying for housing, applying for a residence permit, pay your fees, and so on, and the pre-arrival preparations. And then the studies start in late August. And today is actually the start of the semester for this year. So this is the day when those who applied last year are starting their studies. All right, I think I will leave it at that. And if you want to know a little bit more, and if you're curious about what we offer, please go to our website to explore more. You're also very welcome to contact me. This is my email. If you have any questions about how to apply or anything about the programs or funding or anything like that, you're welcome to reach out to me at any time. And I'll also, of course, stay here and answer any questions that have come in already. So thank you so much. And that was the overview. So I can stop the sharing here.
Good.
All right.
Good. So thanks, Maria, for the presentation. Thanks for your time being here with all the students that are interested in the programs. I'm gonna check the questions. So the first one is from Javier, and he's asking if there is any support for PhD students in the university.
Yeah, so I mentioned it a little bit during the presentation that PhD in Sweden is actually a job position. So when we have a PhD position available, the research group or the department will announce it on the website, and then you apply like a regular job, basically. And if you have the right background and the research experience, and then you have your master's degree, and you have the right level of English, and you can apply. And if they select you, then you are hired by the department. So you would be doing your research, you would be taking some courses, but you will also be doing some administrative work or teaching for the department. So basically, you have a salary, you have a monthly salary. So in that way, it doesn't cost anything. In fact, you get paid to do your PhD. But that is also why it is very competitive, because of course we might have one position and hundreds of people applying. So that's why it's good to go through a master's, because then you can get involved, you can get to know the professors, and you're more likely to be selected. But in terms of funding, there's no, you don't need any funding for that because it is
Okay.
a paid position. So
Okay, so do they need to contact a supervisor before the program or the
No,
university?
they don't, because I mean, since the positions are announced, there's really no point in reaching out before
Okay,
they have an available position. And when they have an available position, there is already a clear supervisor and
okay,
contact person for that. It is possible to, of course, if you have a specific question about the research area, or if there will be any positions coming up soon, you can reach out and ask that. But there's no point in sort of just contacting a professor just to contact them, or just to say, hey, I'm interested in a PhD, because they can't
okay,
really do anything with that until they have a position. Yeah.
okay. Get it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Santiago. He says a lot of universities don't allow cultural students to apply to direct scholarships. Lund allow have blended finance.
Yes. So, for example, if you apply for the Lund University Global Scholarship, and let's say you receive a 50% scholarship, and then it turns out that you are also selected for Colfaturo, then you get another 25%. So then you get 75. So that's fine. You can apply for both, and we will consider that as well. Obviously, if you already have a 90% scholarship or 100, then we're not going to give you money. It's only
Yeah.
deducted from the tuition fee. So up to the full amount, yes.
And also, we have a question from social media. That is the criteria that you take into account to decide the students that are going to have this Lund scholarship. If you can
Mhm.
explain us these criteria.
Yeah, sure. So basically, it is merit based, and it's merit based meaning not just like your overall average grade or something like that. It is merit based for the program that you have applied to, and they have different selection criteria. Some programs only look at your pure academic merits, like your grades and specific courses and your bachelor thesis and so on, and others might have. Yes, we look at your academic credits, but we also look at your motivation and your recommendation letters or other things. And then they will consider that both for the selection to the program and for the selection of scholarships. So basically, it depends on the selection criteria of the specific program. So they look at the overall suitability to that program, and then they kind of rank their top students for admission and the top students for scholarships at the same time. So they will basically, okay, these are the best students for the program. Then if they have applied for a scholarship, we'll select them as well. So that's how it's done. So it's hard to say in advance, oh, you should have this, this, and this, because it depends. But it is merit-based. So yeah.
Good. Then we're gonna go with Milady's. Maybe she wants to know where she can find information about the PhD, like the admission requirements, the cost. Maybe if you can tell us where in the webpage they can find that information.
Yeah, so actually it's quite easy. They can go on the main website, and then under admission, there is a specific page just called PhD studies. And there you can find all of that and the links to the open position, and also an explanation of how it works. And again, there is no cost. It's just a matter of applying to a position that is out. Duration, she asked, and duration is 4 years normally for a PhD. But as I mentioned earlier, if you do a master's and a PhD, you can usually combine them so that it becomes 5 years in total. So instead of a 2-year master and a 4-year PhD, you can combine it. So there are some opportunities for that. But if she wants to apply directly to a PhD, that is possible. Just be aware that it's difficult, but it's 4 years and no cost.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're gonna go with Paola and Maria's question.
Yeah.
Then can you tell us about the work experience in Sweden? Like when they are studying and after once they finish their master's, how's the work experience with students, international students?
Yeah. Well, so basically, everybody is allowed to work. However, the studies is, of course, the priority. I mean, it's full-time studies. So we don't recommend that students have it as a plan for funding to say, oh, I don't have all the funding I need, but I'm actually going to work part-time, because that's very risky. We don't know for sure that you will have time to work or that you will find a job. Having said that, though, there are, of course, a lot of international students who have managed to find part-time work during their studies. And as long as they can manage that, it's completely allowed. But it is competitive. It's quite a small place, and we have 46,000 students, and they all want a part-time job. So of course, depends on your experience and how active you are, but many of the students do work extra, but it should be considered more as a bonus rather than I must find a job or I won't survive. That's not a good situation. But if they, yeah, I can work a little bit extra on the weekends and make some extra money, great. And we have a lot of support for that. So the faculties and the central level of the university, we have like career centers, we have webinars on how to look for work in Sweden, how to write your CV and things like that. So we can help you with that as well. There are also on-campus job fairs where you can connect directly with companies and make contact with guest lecturers and so on in order to get to know about job opportunities. And we do also recommend that students do internships, even if they are unpaid, just to sort of get that network and support for when they graduate later and want to find a job. In terms of Maria's question there for after the studies, it's a little bit the same thing. I mean, it's important to be very active in your job search, to start early, to network very well, to get to know people, to try to do internships, maybe write your thesis with a company, go to the webinars. And those students who do that are very successful in finding jobs. It is also possible to get a prolonged and extended residence permit. So you can stay another year after your studies, after graduation, to look for work. But it is also very international in terms of both the global network you will get, the companies that are here. And so we do recommend looking not only in Lund, but actually apply for jobs everywhere. Apply for jobs in Europe, in the United States, maybe back in Colombia, maybe in Stockholm, maybe in other places. So not all students will be able to stay exactly in Lund. But in general, the success rate is good if the students are active and if they have an experience and so on. So it depends. I mean, it varies a lot depending on what you study and how active you are. Yeah.
Okay, good. Then we have Nicolas' question, and he is asking about the approximate cost of a stay per month, or what recommendation can you give us about this, like budget?
Yeah, so I had a slide on that, and roughly around 900 to 1,000 US dollars is what we would recommend that you have. In terms of the actual housing, it varies depending on where you live. Many students find their own accommodation, or they rent a room somewhere, or they use the Lund University accommodation. And we actually rent from other suppliers. So the rent is different for different rooms. If you have a corridor room, or you live in a studio, or you have a shared apartment. So there's quite a wide range from $350 a month up to $700-800 a month. So it depends on how you live, but overall budget, I would say around 1,000 US dollars per month for everything, for accommodation, for food, for books, for transportation, for everything. Then you're definitely good to go. Then you will manage. Yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Let me check. We have another question. Valentina. If candidates didn't achieve language requirements, there is the possibility to take an English course at the university and enroll to master program?
No, unfortunately not. We used to have a preparatory program, but we don't anymore. And that was only for some of our masters. But no, the students unfortunately need to meet the requirements when they apply in order to be able to start the masters. So it's important. That's why I recommended, take the test now. So maybe you have a chance to take another one and study a little bit more, because we need the test score by the 1st of February, and then it must meet the requirements already. Yeah.
Okay, good. And the last question that we have from social media is about if I can travel with my family, with my spouse, with my children. Like, it's possible to travel with all my family?
Yeah, absolutely. That's quite common. We have quite a lot of students coming with family, and that's no problem at all. There are a couple of things to consider. One is the housing, because we do not offer housing for families. So then you would need to find your own accommodation. We can give you some tips and ideas on where to find it, but we do not have family housing. Another important thing to consider is the funding, of course, because if you want to apply for a residence permit for your family as well, you need to show the migration agency that you have money also for the family, not just for yourself. So that changes the budget, of course, because you also need to make sure that your family can be supported in Sweden. But other than that, as long as those things are under control, then absolutely no problem.
Okay, good. So we do not have more questions. And just to conclude, I just want to ask if maybe you can give us a piece of advice for all the students that want to start the process with the university. What would be the things that they have to take into account to have a successful admission?
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing, as I mentioned there during the presentation as well, is to start in good time. So I'm really happy to see so many here today, because it means you're already thinking about it, and that's really the most important thing, because we do see that many students apply very late and then they miss something, and the process in Sweden is very strict, so the deadlines are very strict. And when it closes, it really closes on that day, on that minute. So there's unfortunately not a lot of flexibility there. So make sure that you check early on, that you have the documents you need. Again, that you take the English test. Maybe if you're not sure that you're going to make it, take it now, and then you have a chance to take one more if you need it. And also funding, to look into that early on. So it's really great that they've connected with you as well as at Kofaturo, because we see many students every year who receive admission and then they say, oh, but I didn't get a scholarship and now I can't go. So plan early so that you have the funding in order already. I think that would be my main tips. And also in terms of the actual application to the program, the main tip is always going to be read what the program requires, because every program has different document requirements and students miss this a lot, and it can really cost you the admission. So make sure to check, do they require a motivation letter? Do they require recommendation letters? Is there anything else I need to fill out? Because if you miss that, you probably won't be selected. So Those are the main tips. Other than that, it's a straightforward process, I would say. It's pretty easy, and everything's online, everything's at the national level. I'm here to help. So feel free to reach out if anything comes up, and you won't regret it. It's a great place to study. So I would really be happy to see even more Colombian students coming. We have quite a large group of Colombians, actually, quite a few students applying every year. So that's great to see. So I hope we can improve that even more.
Good. Yeah, we expect that as well. So
Yeah.
thanks again, Maria, for the time, for answering all the questions. And well, if you have questions regarding Core Futuro, all the participants, you can also write to our email. So let me put it on the chat just to have this contact. Give me just 1 minute. Yo soy futuro arroba corefuturo.es. Okay, so we have our email on the chat. If you have any question, just send a message and we're going to help you with what you need. And well, thanks everyone. Thanks again, Maria, and have a
Thank you so
wonderful
much.
day.
You too. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.